All right, Derivar, it's all you.
Okay, well, welcome everybody to this developer podcast. Much anticipated developer podcast since we didn't get the last one. Today with us we have Robert
Hello.
Efren. Um,
Hello.
greetings. So starting off, let's over the floor to Efren. How is Alcatraz's design going at the moment?
It's going pretty good. Getting closer and closer to finishing up the details on the buildings. Been banging out all the smaller buildings this week. I think right now I've pretty much gotten all the larger buildings out of the way, or the more detailed ones. What I've got left is smaller stuff like the some of the equipment shacks, the greenhouses around the island. Probably the more complicated ones out of that would be the water tower and the guard tower in the docks. Got the restrooms at the docks done, the restrooms by the warden's house. It's about the lighthouse, as you can see right there, is done. That entire area is pretty much fleshed out a little bit more. And then, of course, there's the large part of the officer gardens. You can see right there. That one's going to take not too much work. I mean, a lot of it's been destroyed, so it's just kind of like decrepit, brickwork and garden plots pretty much. But it's coming along and it's getting a lot closer to completion. And after all that stuff is done, I'm going to get started on UV mapping, texturing, and of course collisions. A lot of this stuff already has collisions, like the hardscape stuff on the ground, but the buildings I haven't really banged out too much of the collisions yet. I think the radio station right there has collisions. The bookstore doesn't have any yet. The bathroom doesn't have any. Most of the buildings I've done after the ranger station don't have collisions, so you're probably, oh, I guess that one does. Well, actually, yeah. In third person, you don't really need the collisions to be flushed out too much. They're really more necessary for RTS. And of course, the ground, like all the ground all over the island. Right? It's coming along. I mean, I'm happy with the way it's looking. It's starting to look more and more like Alcatraz, and less like a blob of just gray boxes all over the place. And the closer it gets, the more excited I'm getting. Right there, yeah, that's one of the buildings that does not have collisions on the ground. But just looking at reference, I've been finding all these like interesting little nooks and crannies throughout the island that I've taken the liberty to model out. I mean, even though we're not making all of the buildings enterable, I kind of want to get these areas in there, so because I mean most of it's going to be like for the third person hub. So looking at it, it's like, damn, it'd be a shame not to make it explorable and have proper collisions throughout this whole thing, so players can just kind of go around and look at everything. And there's even still like a lot of set dressing I want to do, like where you're coming up right here on that warehouse to the right. There's that storage area underneath that you can't really see from Google Earth. It's very blurred out and kind of like distorted. So I had to go looking for extra images online, especially because during my trip to Alcatraz, we didn't have access to that area of the island. So a lot of it, was just trying to find photos to get, what these areas look like so I can, get that detail in there, like that tunnel right there. I had no idea that they had a tunnel connecting the quartermaster to the powerhouse until I, went digging for more reference and then realized it's like, holy crap, there's a tunnel there. And I put that in last minute too, because like I found it, I was like, oh, tunnel right there. It's like, that's pretty cool. I'm going to put that in there. So I went back, I took out that whole section and kind of made like a custom mesh for that area just to make the tunnel. I didn't want to use the landscape because of like certain limitations as far as making caves and stuff, and just the way the tessellation on the landscape behaves. I redid this entire area as far as like the elevation. I had to kind of move it up a bit to line up with the rooftops of the powerhouse and some of the second floor windows of the quartermaster. And it stretched all the way over here to the industries building, where I even raised that area right there that you were just looking at. Redid the ramps, because I had to realign everything. And, just looking at these areas, and it's kind of a shame that we didn't make them all enterable, because, these are interesting looking buildings. For anybody who's seen The Rock, there's a lot of cool locations that make it look pretty post-apocalyptic. Another thing I did is I also went and looked up photos for Call of Duty's level on this. I know a lot of that is based on what it looked like in the 60s, but it still had a lot of cool features that I wanted to throw into it. I also have the morgue there that I need to do, and there's also a stairway that goes up to that north end of the cell house that I need to put in. But those are just smaller details that are going to come in as I start to bring in all the textures and the railing and all that stuff. But I'm a lot happier with it now that it's starting to look more and more like Alcatraz. Like at first, when I blocked it all, I was like, oh, I don't like the way this area looks, and I kept revising things and trying to get it closer and closer. Like even here with the lighthouse, I kind of think I might move some of this stuff around, like not the lighthouse itself, but the areas around it, like the pavement, stuff like that. Like I redid this, the pavement around the courtyard. I had to get a ton of reference from the internet to get better angles on that storage area underneath the lighthouse. The bathrooms were pretty straightforward right there. I got plenty of reference of that. The only thing that I was missing was reference of the side of the building facing the bay area. I kept getting angles from this end, but the back facing wall was hard to find, decent reference for that. But eventually, I got like at least one photo from a low angle where I could see some of the features on that side of the building. And, like from what I could see, there was 2 windows there, and I got that in there. There's still some changes I'm going to make within the warden's house so that you can run up inside the basement area. Lighthouse was pretty straightforward. I had plenty of reference to work off of for that thing. From pictures that we took, from pictures that they have online, from little photos of models that people built of the lighthouse. So I was able to get plenty of reference for that. It was probably the easiest thing I had to build on Alcatraz. Besides that, the next thing to do is just finding megascans that fit the look of these buildings that you're going to find on Alcatraz. And UV mapping is going to be a hell of a task. Even though I know I'm probably going to use like maybe 3 to 4 IDs for each building, just to get rooftops, to get the glass on the buildings, trim, and any other secondary or tertiary textures that they have on them. Stuff like light fixtures that are up against the buildings, probably going to just use separate models that we have available. A lot of that is just straightforward. I didn't want to lump that all into one mesh because I want to keep the IDs pretty low. Like I said, 3 to 4 texture IDs or material IDs. But yeah, it's getting close, and I can't wait to actually get this in there and have people run around and check it out.
Movie.
And
yeah, I certainly think I can speak for a lot of us to say that it looks absolutely stunning. Like genuinely, you've done an amazing job. Something I'm not sure if anyone else, but I know me personally, I would love to know what really goes into making a map that looks genuinely this good. Like, how do you get the buildings to look as good as they do?
reference. A lot of it comes down to reference, and it's just looking back and forth and getting as many angles and photographs as you can. Like one thing I found annoying is that a lot of people who go to Alcatraz, and I could kind of understand that they don't give access to certain areas because they're just falling apart and it's dangerous. But I'm pretty sure they also have like rules against people using drones. So it was a bit annoying getting certain angles of sides of buildings to get the detail there, because I mean that's one thing I was big on. I was like, fuck. It's like every picture I see on the internet is this tired ass side of the building that pretty much everybody and their mom has photographed in the history of this island. Every tourist, and it's like, where's the other angle? You know, I need an angle from this side, and just going and looking for that reference was probably the most time consuming part. Like I try not to spend too much time on it. I mean, I get how, like, you know, when you're working even with like concept art, sometimes as a 3D artist you have to guess. You just have to make a decision and be like, all right, I can't see what's on the other side of this, so let's. I mean, but at least try to keep it consistent with, you know, what you see, which is, you know, what you see in real life. Like even with the lighthouse, I think I readjusted the height on that thing like a couple of times because I just kept thinking like, okay, that doesn't look right. It looks too big. Like it was a lot bigger than what you see right now. And even now I'm looking at it and it's like, it still looks a little too tall. Because originally I made it shorter than what it is, and I was like, damn it, it looks too small. And then I made it bigger and I was like, okay, no, it looks too big. But right now, I'm kind of in between. I'm like, it looks kind of right.
I would say it looks perfect. Because
But I'm probably going to have to look at more reference. Yeah,
you make
okay.
it bigger, because like realistically, this is not 1-to-1 in terms of like the size, but like you figure it just wasn't terrible based off of like our team size to like try and do it a 1-to-1 scale. So you still have to make some kind of concession there. I feel like, and I feel like, yeah,
a lot of
no,
it.
You good.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Well, yeah, a lot of it, like, I also had to make a decision. Like, we need to make it playable, too. There's got to be enough space for units to move around. I can't have too many areas. Like, Alcatraz has a lot of very small spaces. You know, and I still wanted to make it so that units can, mobilize through these areas properly without getting stuck. And, I mean, we'll probably run into stuff like that. But, you know, when you make this kind of thing, you know, there's that choice between making it 1-to-1 and then it's like, okay, we have to accommodate game mechanics because, you know, this is going to double as a player hub and a location in the open world map. So you kind of have to find that balance. It's like, I know a lot of these areas, like, yeah, I did have to make them a little larger, like where you see that base, you know, in real life, it's got like rubble and mounds of dirt where buildings used to stand that are no longer there. So it's like, okay, that would be a perfect place to build a base when you're in the open world map. So I had to flatten that whole area out to accommodate that part of the gameplay. And yeah, it's just finding a balance between, you know, its real life counterpart and how the game plays out. You know, the game mechanics.
Okay.
Yeah, I think me personally, right, is like what excites me the most about Alcatraz and the fact that you guys are doing Alcatraz is I've always said video games are the best place to experience places you can't afford to go. And Alcatraz is one of them. You're making the island look absolutely amazing. One. And two, it's a place I know I'll never go in real life. And the fact that I can go there in a video game, it excites me. Because it's something that it's just new. You know, it's a new experience sort of thing, you know? And it's something that is very exciting.
Dig it.
One other thing I was going to do, I've also kind of stopped doing like streams of working because I kind of wanted to focus on this and push through it, you know, as aggressively as I can with the time that I have. But I have been posting time-lapse videos of the modeling I've been doing, you know, so people can go and check it out. I mean, I know they're kind of like silent videos too, but you know, copyright stuff on YouTube, it's like you can't put music to it. So it's like, yeah, you know, if you want to go check those out on my YouTube channel, you can. I'll be posting. I have like a sizable backlog of footage I need to post.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to take like, yeah, I've been trying to take at least one night a week to edit those down and post them so people can check it out. But There's no music, so put on your favorite music, check it out. They're pretty quick. I'm trying to keep them under 20 minutes. I mean, most of them I've been able to cut down to 20 minutes. So it's like a 2 to 4 hour session of modeling that I've compressed down to like less than 20 minutes. And I pretty much substituted that for my live streams because just time and streaming can get exhausting, man. And sometimes it's like a confidence killer too, because it's like I look and it's like, fuck, nobody's watching. It's like, why am I even doing this? It's like, oh well, it's like, okay, let's do the next best thing. Let's just record it and then post it on YouTube, and whoever wants to watch it can watch it. I mean, at least that's a good trade-off, and I can just focus on the work. And if I need to step away, take a break, and just pause recording, I can do that and then just kind of take time to edit it out. But I'm also going to be doing more as I continue to populate the island with props, because there's definitely a lot of prop population that needs to be done, especially with vegetation and cleaning up the landscape further, improving the textures, and really getting this thing looking perfect. I mean, it's not going to look perfect like real life Alcatraz, but pretty damn close from a gamey standpoint, but still, making that effort to make it look good. So that when people come here, it's like, yeah, it's Alcatraz. And I mean, I've been there a couple of times already, and it's an awesome place. It really is. I mean, just the feeling you get from going there for me is like, fuck, it's like I start to imagine what it might have been like to be locked up in this place during that time, and just it's pretty cool to have worked on it. I mean, I look back on everything I've done, man. I can't believe I did this pretty much by myself so far. And when we started, when I started work on this, I kind of had like this self, fuck, how am I going to do this by myself? It's like, this is way too much. Pretty much every time I start a project on this game, I get this feeling of like self-doubt. It's like, I'm not going to be able to do this by myself, man. It's like, how myself? And just looking at the scope of I mean, I thought the same thing with San Francisco. But once you get your you kind of settle down and organize yourself and start banging it out, and then I look back on it, it's like, damn, all right, I've impressed myself, but at the same time, I'm also looking at it like, okay, I could have done better here, but I'll usually ask like Rob or somebody else on the team and be like, what do you think? Do you think we should change it? And they'll offer their input, and sometimes it's like, okay, yeah, you're right. I need to change this up over here, maybe move things around, and maybe even just reconstruct the entire area to make it look better. But looking back now, it's like, yeah, I did it right on. I mean, it seemed impossible to myself to do this, but now it's like, all right, I'm proud of it, and the further I get into it, I'm more and more proud of it, and getting feedback from my teammates, it feels a lot better to hear that I'm going in the right direction, and they put in their 2 cents, and it helps out too, because it just reassures me, or it reassures me that I've done a good job, or that I need to do better in certain areas where I have doubts. Kind of like with the lighthouse. I probably spent like maybe 30 minutes staring at that thing and resizing it and trying to get it right, and then going back to Google Earth or photographs of it to kind of compare it to the size of the cell house and the warden's house, and making sure that I got the scale as close as possible. So there's always stuff like that makes me second guess myself. But I mean, even now looking at it, it's like, yeah,
No,
I did that.
So one of the biggest things for this was just kind of getting it to a point, ideally, where he gets to what he was talking about, is getting it to mega scans, getting it to a point where we can start to texture it and replace some of the whip textures. Ideally, Dimitri comes over and helps him. He's been working on the structures on the vehicles, the structure, so we'll get in that later on. But I think that realistically, Efren's thing is just focusing on the exterior, and then that way, when Dimitri comes in the next week or so, he'll be focusing on the actual main jailhouse, which is this little structure right here, and that'll be like your hub / main area, where you're just kind of launching your missions, playing Pandemic, playing Horde, customizing your operator, that kind of stuff. So the job that Efren's done is beautiful. in terms of establishing the canvas that we're going to be playing on for when it comes to the open world. Because the open world's going to have an empty, gutted version of this that you'll be able to build on. And you'll be able to dock the carrier with. But the main menu will be the populated, like, actually dense. Like, you can walk around, look at people, and they'll be walking around, and, you know, little ambient stuff going on. Just so we can have a fun, interesting main menu to the game. And then just have, like, a tab or like an escape key where you can teleport around like in Space Marine for people who don't want to walk everywhere. Because ideally, all of the things are going to be in here. And what we were planning on doing, just in case if the playtest wasn't like, let's say we get to the next point in the next week or two where the playtest is ready, but the interior is not ready. That we were just going to just pretty much just put a bunch of consoles outside of this door here, and then have it to where we can playtest and you guys can playtest while this building is still under construction by Dimitri and co. Because the outside will keep Efren busy foreseeably for a couple more weeks as he just kind of works to finalize texture, do detail passes, and get it to the point where it's like finished. So did we want to segue into the next topic, which is the new turrets, Dervar? Or do you have anything else you want to cover, Efren?
I think the biggest thing that
Sure.
that I kind of want to ask is, since the main hub
Yes,
is going
this
to
will
be the
be-
main jailhouse, would we see references to some of the old prisons, such as
Yeah,
one
so
of
the
most
idea is that
famous
the
ones,
prison
Alcatraz?
cells themselves, so in the lore, when they first took over Alcatraz, 'cause it was taken over previously during the earthquake that we had, like in 1980s or whatever it was, is that they would actually set up temporary, like you know, living quarters down here, and while they're still doing that, and while they're still bringing equipment onto the island, the idea is that there are still some Cirque soldiers that are operating out of the main wing, which is basically like the old jail cells. They just took the doors out, basically. So it's one of those things where, like, we're going to be experimenting with that. And we have a lot of pictures that we took from myself. And then Efren has his own pictures. Because I personally went on 2 tours, one during the day and one during the night. The one during the day was like the little VIP tour crap thing, whatever. So they let you go underground into like the underground tunnel network that they have on the island. And then it also lets you explore over here where they filmed The Rock, basically, that tunnel network that Efren was talking about. So I got to direct them to some of those pictures that I took because they're probably lost on the repo. But we do have some that they allowed us to take. But yeah, it's one of those things where, like he was saying, is that we still have to kind of form some basis of like how it looks just by looking at the pictures online and what we have, and then just editing and changing it as needed. But I have an extraordinary amount of pictures from the inside Jailhouse when it comes down to each floor and the actual like jails themselves, because that was one of the big things that I hit upon, was taking pictures of like the outside here, and then the eagle that they have up here. I think it's looking to the side, and it basically means abandon all hope. It's basically like when there's like a little cool little emblem they have there. So it's like those little things that we have to basically get like designed and kind of decorated here and here, get the fences in and everything else. So that's going to be interesting.
I think
Yeah,
we have
we
a
do.
floor plan of
Yeah,
the interior
yeah,
too,
we did
don't
find
we?
a floor plan. That's just sitting on
Alright.
the game design doc for that level. But it's just one of those things where we're gonna have to just execute on that as we get closer to like Dimitri being able to shift over from the turrets. So I apologize if I sound like I'm dying. I'm sick, so this week has been really, really rough for me. So let me go ahead and I'm going to pull. Huh? Oh yeah.
As they say,
So.
it's okay.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna pull open the turrets that Dimitri has been working on, so we can kind of cover those. So, one thing that I've been talking about for quite a bit of time was essentially making it to where we had turrets that were more representative of kind of like what's going on actually in gameplay, where it's like they're actually like the sentry turrets that we had previously, the field turrets, were never meant to be used as they are now with like an end all. They were meant as like quick little deployable, destroyable turrets, and they ended up being like the Margaret line, kind of like World War One trench kind of stuff. And it was kind of like, yeah, we never really intended for them to be that. We always wanted to replace them with something that was more inspired from like Command and Conquer or like what do you call that prototype, where it's like a little stationary emplacement that's a little bit bigger, and it makes a little bit more sense of how they can take on juggernauts, leviathans, standard infected blow up guys, spitters, X, Y, and Z. So this is the second tier turret. This finishes up the umbrella of turrets that we're planning during this push. And the idea is that you would have this baby, and then you would have its lesser variant, which I will bring up. Hold on. Dimitri
way to
designed it
find a
himself.
design
That's
for
why
that thing.
that's why he
Jeez.
hasn't been able to come over and help on the other stuff. Is he's been basically looking at like prototypes and other turrets like that they have in real life, and trying to find a middle ground between military realism and a video game. So that's my biggest thing, is that you figure like to a certain degree you can only go so realistic when you're making a game of this, like a prototype type game. So you still have to come up with some new stuff. So this is basically the tier 1 that you have here. That basically we're going to start implementation next week when it comes to the turrets. So you have your tier 1 turret, which is your weak, low end minigun for unarmored targets. It's not really going to be great against the juggernauts and the leviathans and the other higher class enemies, but they'll do the job if you build enough of them in mass, theoretically. Then you would have your tier 2s, which are basically your anti-armored, like shells, like shooting something explosive essentially at your targets. And then the finish out the umbrella would be the little stingers that we had made. Because I personally never really liked the approach that we did with having the bloody Avengers in a ghillie like netting. I hated it. It was more so just a compromise, just to basically get something in there that served the purpose of anti-air. And I always intended, for when we had the resources and the time, to be able to get something in more finite that would serve the aesthetic that I wanted. In terms of basically there's some, this doesn't really exist in real life, that mounting tripod, and I don't believe this turret exists. This turret does not exist in real life. It's custom and it's modified, probably from some tank. But it was one of those things where I just kind of set the task on my artist, and he just did the research, and he was able to come to a compromise in terms of getting something designed the last couple of weeks since the last time you've heard of us. So I think he did a phenomenal job with designing the final suite of turrets, and that the current turrets that you guys have in Legacy will become engineer pets. That will be basically like the little machine gun, a little missile turret, and the little MG turret will just be quick little small emplacements that you throw down from the engineer, and you just have a small limit of 2 or 3, whatever. And it'll basically just be an ability for the engineer, kind of deal. And they just kind of like the engineer from Team Fortress would be the closest comparison that I can make, or the turrets from Aliens, the second one, the more militaristic one. So that is essentially what we're going for in terms of basically the turrets, and we're going to start the turrets going into next week. We do have a lot to show today, so we're going to try and rapid fire it to make sure that we don't go over the 2-hour mark that we normally aim for, because there's a crap ton. So, yeah, go.
I mean, that looks like a 20 millimeter autocannon.
It looks beautiful
on a turret base.
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
I need
I can't
that in my
complain.
life. I need. Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
need
yeah.
this.
All right. So now we're gonna move on to the next thing, which would be the. Oh right. Okay. So let me see. Is there anything else for pictures that we need to show so I don't go back? Oh right, Michael's stuff. I'm so sorry. So one of the big things that Michael's been doing over the course of the last couple of weeks is going over every single weapon that we have in an entire project and giving them the once over to make sure that they are aesthetically pleasing and that they look final, they're done. We don't have to go back and work on them ever again. So at the same time, he's also been working on the civilian weapons kind of deal. we put off working on the civilian meshes while we're waiting on some other like last minute like things. So we're gonna get back to the civilian meshes for him soon. But for right now, he's working on the weapons. So let me bring up some of these pictures of some of the weapons that he's been working on for the civilian factions, for the Circ. Why is it doing that? Hold on. Oh, it's bloody annoying. So he's been basically just kind of going through and just modeling some newer weapons in terms of basically like final meshes, final textures, and just getting a final approval for them. Because a lot of them were made at a time where the engine had different standards. And that technology has come a long way since we made the game, like, 4 or 5 years ago. So one of the biggest things was to modernize the weapons and give a little bit more diversity from Circ to the civilians to Circ civilians. Really, it's just Circ civilians really at this point, and then long term, obviously, there will be some with the factions, the civilians, like the police and Natalie and them. Like he has a whole like weapon trove of stuff that we haven't showed yet. I think there's like 30 or 40 more guns that he's hiding, but we're not going to show those just yet for the time being. But you can figure these are some of the examples of some of the weapons he's been kind of going through and essentially just kind of improving the modeling, improving the texturing, and just seeking approval for them so we can move on to the next stages of doing the civilian meshes themselves. Let me go ahead and move on to the next bullet point. Oh yeah, he's been going hard on these weapons, and you figure he'll start. As far as I know, he's already started putting these in the engine. He's been posting them in his reports channel, just getting feedback and showing me every couple of days in terms of his progress. But yeah, so when you get new like the next build per se, the idea is that every weapon will be a little bit more like polished, a little bit more gritty, a little bit more like finalized over legacy, where every gun doesn't look like it's brand new off of the the manufacturing range, and it actually has a little bit of weathering and a little bit of like grittiness to them per se. Okay, so there's that. Hold on. Okay, so now we'll move into some of the programming. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna bring up. Let's see. We'll go to my player test map. We're not gonna save that. I don't know why I wanted to save that. And we're just gonna jump right in to a 2-player session. We'll do a half and half separation. And I'm just gonna show some of the stuff that we've all been working on. All right, so let me see. Am I killing my frame rate by streaming on so many platforms? Hold on. Oh yeah, Unreal hates this. I'm streaming on Twitch right now, and it's like my frame rate's like 19. Okay, I'm gonna have to drop Twitch. It's straining my CPU. There's only one person that's on Twitch. Please go to YouTube or Steam Store. There's like one person watching on Twitch, and it's like overloading my CPU. Oh god, that's so much better. Holy crap. I'm gonna have to look into those settings later because like we're getting a streaming computer, so I don't have to bottom out my CPU. Okay, so I'm gonna show off the active denial system. And essentially, the active denial was something that we worked on last week. We weren't able to show off just because, well, yeah, I was dying. So essentially, still kind of dying. The active denial in Legacy was okay. Like you figure, like it wasn't anything really to write home about. The idea was that it would stun people in a radial, and there really wasn't that much nuance to it. So I kind of like talked to some people on Discord. I even in the last couple podcasts, I just heard people have to say, go back and took some notes. And I wanted to make it to where it could move. So I made it to where, you can essentially build an ADS, which is basically a stunning platform. It's like have you ever seen the original Incredible Hulk, like one of the original Marvel movies, where they had that device that sent out that sonic pulse to like incapacitate the Hulk? Um, it's basically kind of like that, but it's for riot control, where it's almost like a sensory overload device, where like it sends out all these like sounds and like this audio visual stuff to overwhelm people. And essentially, well, keep in mind in YouTube chat, the legacy version does not rotate. That was something that I came to the conclusion to based off of talking to people on Discord and on one of the podcasts. But they were like, please, for the love of God, make the ADS rotate. So you'll see an example where, like, if I spawn an infected, so I'm gonna do it on the second player. Oh, I didn't want to do that console command. I wanted to do set ADS directory. Sorry, direction. So if I spawn an infected, which I'm going to do it on the host because he has authority, put it in slow-mo. Will they kill him too fast? They might kill him too fast. So we're going to put you guys on hold fire because that's going to be awkward. And then I'm going to do fire ADS. And you're going to notice that when it fires, it stuns everyone in the radius. And they play a generic stun animation. And that stun animation is not finalized yet. But it's one of those things where it just kind of opens the door, basically, for like having a little bit more versatility to combat. Well, it'll stun your units, it'll stun civilians, it'll stun the infected. And the idea is that it builds a charge. So I'm waiting for some other elements to catch up so I can get a visual indicator designed so you know, like right here, what the charge level is. Because if I press F11 and I go to output log, maybe the console command. Oh, you know what, Derek? We're going to remove the log. But it would say it was charging down here in the log. So the idea is that essentially you can rotate this and both players can do it. So like if I go this and I set ADS direction, but then the first player is like, I really don't want it to face that way. Oh, I didn't want to fire it. You can fire it while it's moving. So the reason why it's all done via console command is that I'm waiting for the ability system to come online. Or the next, because going into next week, it's the turrets, it's the ability system, and then it's the mini map and getting the last elements of like gameplay online so we can actually have like a playtest of whatever's not still done at that point. So you're going to notice that like some of these commands are all like very visual, very technical, because like I need to execute it and not wait for the other systems to be done. Because those are like at the end of the mile marker, and it's going to take both me and Derek to get that ability system replicated. Because it's very complicated. So you figure there's a quick little visualization of it, and then if I deselect it, you don't see the box anymore. The box is kind of whip. I've talked to my artist about getting something else made, but it will work for the time being for the early playtest. And then as things calm down, and as he's not running around, Ephraim's not running around, we'll look into getting something a little bit more aesthetically pleasing in. But yeah, so there's the ADS. And let me, I'll just fire it off one more time while it's moving. Oh, see, so I stunned them while it was going, and they do this little stupid stun animation. They have those little butterfly effects over his head like we do in Legacy. And it worked. They can't shoot, they can't move. Same thing with Cirque, same thing for Infected. So it's a cool little toy if you have like a bunch of civilians outside your base and you don't want to kill them. You could stun them to drop their morale and get them to flee. You could use it on civilians to basically like do that to drop their stamina. Because like we're gonna re-implement the stamina system from Legacy that basically had it to where you had like a beanbag shotgun that you could give the assaults. And then that way you could basically incapacitate them and drop their morale without killing everyone. So this ADS will feed into that system in terms of being able to non-lethally disperse civilians that just won't leave you the hell alone. Okay, you also notice that the day and night system is now in. And I spent quite a bit of time getting it synchronized and set up between both clients so that there's an actual day and night system and it's moving. The visuals are still kind of whip. My technical artist has not had the time to go in and basically like make it look exactly like it was in Legacy. So it's one of those things where he's gonna have to kind of do that in the next coming weeks. There's no weather system yet. The weather system will come in foreseeably in the next couple weeks. So there's no rain and storms and fog and all that stuff. We'll work that out, and we'll find a time of fitting it in as we work into getting towards like I think after the first playtest, then we'll do some of those like icing on the cake things before we officially start phase 2, which would be like before we start phase 2, we need to get like the weather system in. We need to make sure that everything else that's already in there is functional and there's no other issue. Sorry if I'm like talking weird. And then you'll also notice that names are now replicated and that the names actually appear. And then in previous podcasts, there was no synergy between names and there was no naming system. So we got that in, and all that's situated now. And then here I will show the spotlight system. So we got the lights on, so that they actually are synchronized to the day and night, so they automatically turn on and off, just like they do in Legacy. So now that's in, and it works and it functions, and we just need to basically do some more testing. If I turn on slow-mo 5, and I just kind of go through the day, you'll notice that. Let me see.
Okay, I'm
Yeah?
gonna have to cut in
Oh,
here a
you're good.
little
I'll
bit.
keep running.
I have to go to my appointment.
Yeah, it's fun.
a good
Basically, when the let me see if it's going to go. Okay, well, when it did hit daytime, I don't want to wait that long. But the idea is that it automatically turns the lights on and off based off of the time of day. I didn't get a chance to put in the console command before I got sick this week. But essentially, when it does turn day in a second, hopefully we don't have to wait that long, I'll be able to show you guys. And that is synchronized between both clients, and now it replicates day and night, and your lights automatically turn on and off. So we got all of that situated. And I programmed it in a way where it could extend to vehicles and weapons and structures in the future, like other types of structures, like barracks. So this system is very easily extendable. There it goes. Sorry. This system is very easily extendable to other gameplay elements where like your vehicles would automatically turn their lights on or off at nighttime. Your barracks would automatically turn, well, the barracks did that already, but the system's already there to facilitate it. Because I focus primarily on the light pole and the spotlight and re-implementing them in the way that we learned from Legacy to not have any build restrictions, so you didn't have to worry about overlapping beams and lights, per se. So we got that situated. Was one of the things that we did. And then you'll notice, like, it's daytime again. The sun's, I can't see the sun right now because of my view pitch limit. But the sun's out and everything else, so that's groovy. Let me go ahead and bring up my notes. Oh, right. So one of the other things that we did, going into the last period of time, was the polish on the operators. So let me set the time dilation back to normal. And you'll notice that they actually properly switch between their UIs now. So I have my little operator running on the ground. I'm on the host, the listen server. And then I have another RTS player up there that's basically watching. That's like, oh, okay, I'm going to go back to building or whatever. So, now I can go over here and I can select this engineer and I can maybe build a generator and, he would see it and be like, oh, okay, the RTS player is building some generators over here. I should probably get out of the way, So I can place a generator down right here and then go back to the host. And then, that way you get that collaborative effort between the RTS elements and the TPS elements in terms of like the people that are playing as your boots on the ground, per se. And then one of the other things that we set up was having it to where you had the attachment system replicated. So let's see if I can remember the console command. So, we have like different attachments that we have set up. Like you see the magazine went to 100. That I didn't. No, that was muzzle. Different muzzle breaks to affect the weapon differently. We have scopes And then we had, hold on. And then we had under barrels. So Michael hasn't had a chance to basically update the associating logic for the underhanded poses. I'm definitely getting some frame rate issues with running so many streams at the same time. Let me just lower the viewport size a little bit there. But basically, the idea is that at that point, you can customize your weapons as you're leveling up your operator and leveling up their weapon as you're playing the game. And then at that point, you can make it to where like your operators, not only do you have their abilities, but you have the attachments that go on the weapons that basically allow you to augment them to play within certain skill sets or certain ways of playing. Rotating the spotlights, I'll write that down or let me talk to my artists. Because I thought about that when I was implementing it, but I have to talk to Dimitri and see what he can do. I wonder if I can do this. Hold on. Oh, yeah, I didn't think that was going to work. Yeah, okay. Because there's no AI controller on him. So he's just going to ignore the movements because there's a player possessing him right now. I forgot. I didn't try that earlier in the week. So you can see like an example of the operator being able to move around and just all that. And then I can jump out by pressing B. And then it jumps back to the RTS perspective. And then if the host is like, oh, hey, look, you know what? Maybe I want to play as that operator. Then it jumps to that. And then now the host is over here doing some building. Maybe they select an engineer. And they're like, you know what? I'm going to build a guard tower. So they go over here and they build a guard tower. And then they're like, wait, there's an attack coming. So they can possess the second operator in the arena. And then that way, both players can basically, like, you know, group up together and fight and that kind of stuff. So that was one of the things that I worked on going into this last couple of weeks, is getting all this situated. And then fixing desynchronization and other bugs like that. And you'll also see that we also have an actual guard tower operator in there. Like, there's an actual guy now in the guard tower, besides just being an actual mesh nothing actually happened and it's fully animated, which I'll show you in the next segment, that part of it. We also got the crouch working. Seems to be there's some little issues that we need to work out in terms of basically the crouch and its implementation, because there's a weird little hiccup there in terms of a transition that we need to fix. There were some issues with the shooting accuracy, so we did have to iron those out. I am definitely getting some frame rate issues. Let me close Wallpaper Engine. Hold on. There we go. Okay. It was just, the problem is I'm running almost two like 4K windows, and they're having to process 2 copies of the game at the same time, as well as doing the stream, and that's an incredible amount of strain to put on your computer. So I'm probably gonna have to like start streaming it on a laptop that just has like a capture card in the future, so I don't have to blow up my computer. And I might be able to make this full screen now by turning off Wallpaper Engine. We'll see. Nope, definitely not. Okay, so there's a gist of how that's working. And then if I jump out by pressing B, then cool. The character goes back to their RTS animations. I can click on them, and I can issue them orders and get them back up to the front line if I need to go build something else, or I need to go do something else in gameplay. And then you'll notice that the guard tower is back in and replicated. So if I go over here and I just go look at little Timmy up there, I'll just be awkward and just stare at him backwards. So then I click on this and I click on that. I can basically change out his weapon unless there's a bug. Looks like that is definitely a bug, so that's fun. So you're supposed to be able to change out their weapon, but I guess it's not playing nicely right now. So we'll have to look into that. Let me see if it's a client-based issue. Nope, not a client-based issue. So that might just be a bug we have to look into. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go into the larger test map. So let me go into Derek's test map, which is the... Sorry. And I'm gonna load in. We'll do a half and half, and we'll see how well that plays. So I will move that viewport over here. And then we're going to go here. And then we're going to zoom in. And then that way you can actually see the little guy in there. Let's see if it was a bug just in that viewport. No, I guess it just does it regardless. So I'll have to have, we'll have to look into that one. But you can see that the tower guard says 1 of 1, so you can't do anything there. That doesn't do anything. And if I press the equal sign, door kicks up. It's animated for both people. And if I spawn a metric crap ton of spitters, they are spinning, but he's not charging, ironically. So let me check the navigation mesh to make sure it's built. That's weird. Okay, well, they're supposed to be charging, but they're not charging for some reason. So I guess they're just being killed way too fast before they can actually acquire a target. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this so we can't perfectly see. And then I'm going to spawn in a spitter. And let's see if they come after a while. No, they're not coming at all. Okay, well, then we're going to have to go to the bigger map. Yeah, this one. And then we're going to spawn in. Move this over here. And then we're going to go this. And we're going to build a guard tower. Alright, let's see if they run it equal reliably when they're not pre-placed. Because that just might be a bug we have to look into. And then one of the other things that you'll notice over the last couple of weeks is that we also made it to where if I train a couple of units here, and then the second player clicks, you can see the actual units that are being trained. Because previously there was like a issue that was occurring where it wouldn't show like people are being built unless the player in that moment like built them, like that client per se. So that was something else we did. We do need to add a color coded system or add like a parentheses that basically says what player built them, so you understand like who spent all the money. And then you click on a building and it's like, oh, Ricky spent, is building like 5 units or whatever. And then you'd be like, why are you building all these stupid units? So that's one of the things that basically we need to essentially just kind of get tweaked out going into the week. Okay, hold on. Okay, they're doing pretty well. Decent. And then let's see if we can't finish that wall. Actually, no, I'm going to have client 2 finish the wall. There we go. Then we're going to send these guys up there. We're going to send these guys here. And then we're going to build. And then you can also see that, here, I'll show you guys the next part, is that we set it up so that you could. That's weird. Hold on. Oh, I see. Okay, so essentially, if I go here, you can see that we do have a rudimentary basic like weapon thing. Derek still needs to add in the secondary weapon thing here, so that's something else that we're going to be doing going into the next week. I guess it's not playing nicely, but there should be. Yeah, I guess we have to look into that. Is that there should be a weapon market that comes up right now, like it does in Legacy, to allow you to change out the weapon. But I guess something's not working there, so we'll have to look into that. Here, I'll bring up a GIF so you guys can see what I'm talking about, because I know it was working. Where is it? Where is it? Ah, here it is. So yeah, this one, where I guess it's doesn't like me right now, and I'm gonna have to look into that bug. But you should be able to do this. But for whatever reason, it is being stupid. So we're going to have to look into that. I guess that's the dangers of doing stuff live, is that sometimes something doesn't exactly line up with our serialize or clean tests. But we'll look into that. So essentially, if it was playing nicely, like in Legacy, there'd be a weapon icon there. I click on it, and I'd be able to see basically what the heck is going on. And you can also see in that example, if it's going to come back up for me again, is that when you do it, it will show you who purchased it, is the idea. So if someone switches out a weapon recently, it'll say, like, if you have that same unit selected, it would show you who did it. So that way you could be like, why are you buying all these stupid weapons? Like, here, so let me show you guys that. Hold on. Okay, that might take a second to find. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to move on to the next section because we're running out of time. I don't want to just spend forever looking for that. But you guys can see that slowly but surely all the systems are coming online. You have the walls, the defensive emplacements, the barracks, the AI working. It's a little too dark right now. Yes, I know that. We definitely need to go in and tweak a little bit of a day and night, because the day and night has not been balanced like it was before. So it's a little too dark right now as it stands. So we'll go and we'll do that kind of stuff before this gets to your guys' hands. But generally, this is what we're working on for the co-op playtest, to be able to get all of this working. Let's see if it's going to play nicely. Nope, still doesn't like me. Maybe I don't know. That's weird. It's really weird. You know what? I wonder if it just only works on that one test map. I'm just going to go check something real quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the top-down example map. And I'm going to just switch it down to one client, because I'm curious if it's a... Oh, there's some engineers in here. Just a moment. I'm just curious. It's got to do a little experimentation here. This is a dev map, so that's why the Sky Crane just kind of comes out of the nether realms. We also made it to where you can't build units while it was coming in. I need to get rid of that stupid radius box when it's coming in, because you can select it, but you can't actually like do anything until it lands. So it's more of like, it's not actually supplying ammo while it landing like that, but it's still bloody annoying. So I have to fix that. Oh my god, that never gets old. Yeah, you see what the? Okay, so it's probably a replication issue. Okay, we'll have to look into that. But you can see in this example, I could switch his he has an M4. Here's the whole thing. Okay, cool. So this was more of a crude example of showing that the system works and that you can switch out weapons. It's one of those things where like we haven't put in, because we have a crap ton of guns on Legacy Cepheus, and we didn't want to just bring them all over and then basically have like a wild west in terms of basically we wanted to make sure that we perfected the game, this core, with the least amount of guns, i.e. the 2 or 3 that we're using right now. Make sure we're happy with them. Get a nice clean workflow. Get a nice clean way of customizing and editing them. And then when we're happy, before the playtest, we spend like a whole day bringing over all the weapons, setting up the animations, setting up the data assets, and basically just scaling up. So it's one of those things where like that's why you're gonna notice that in this like little dirty debug session, I can put a pistol in both slots, which doesn't make any sense, but fuck it, we're doing it live. And then switching weapons and all that other cool stuff. I'm just gonna test one more thing, just so I know a little bit more information going into Monday. And then we can move on to the next areas of stuff that we've done. Boop. Boop. Again, I apologize if my throat sounds really bad. I've been like really, really sick all week, which is why you haven't been seeing me post in the Discord thing. Like I tried to work a couple of days this week and I was just miserable. So I had to like do whatever I could earlier in the week and then just kind of roll with the punches. So I just probably sound really nasally, I guess, is what Duravar told me earlier. I'm just curious if I have 2 clients, if it still works, or if it only breaks when that happens. So this is more of an experimentation. Sorry, you guys are along for the ride for game design today. So it is something that only occurs on that map, so something's not triggering. Okay, we'll have to look into that. And that's a kawaii, because it's a weird aspect ratio. It's like a phone that's portrait. The UI doesn't scale properly. So yeah, it's working. It's working until it's not. So that's something we'll have to look into and figure out why that's happening and fix that. I know that from the last podcast we showed you guys, we fixed the sky crane duplication issues. We fixed the infected sometimes breaking their legs and desynching between clients. So when one client he was crawling and another client he was standing. So that was also fixed going into this week. Let me check my notes here. Oh, right, duh. I'm so sorry. I got to show you guys the other cool thing. So if I go to Alcatraz, which is probably the best map to show it on. There's a parachute system. Now, it's one of those things where like we need to kind of ratchet it up a little bit because you figure it doesn't have nearly as much air control as I'd like. We need to make the gun not be visible. Yeah, we need to make the gun
That's
not
nuts.
visible when you're actually bloody parachuting because that's how we want the operators to spawn to the map. It's like Warzone. So when we get some time, because right now this isn't mission critical. It serves its purpose. It works. So when we get some time when things calm down, before we start phase 2 of the doctrines and the search stuff, myself or Derek will probably spend a day going in and looking at Pug or Call of Duty or Battlefield, and then use them as reference to kind of get a more like movable version of the operator's parachuting. So then that way it just feels better because everyone nowadays is used to Fortnite, like all those other games like Call of Duty, where it's like you actually have some amount of air control. And right now, like you're really kind of screwed. Like I can only move so much, and really you can only move a lot when the parachute deploys. You can't actually like really affect his trajectory too much until that happens. So it's one of those things where we need to kind of go through and ratchet that up for when we get the operator spawning fully operational. Because that's one of the last line items we have to do for the playtest. It's the HUD, it's the ability system, So, I'm sorry, not the HUD. That's too broad. It's the minimap for the RTS. It is the ping system for the RTS. It is the ability system for both RTS and TPS. And then it is last minute polish, small little things here and there, like the weapons that I mentioned previously. And then it's basically where is it? There was something else I had to mention. No, I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell. There might be some little things we have to change here and there, but like the actives are almost done. The turrets will be done in probably a day or two. The guard tower will probably be done another day. So like Monday, Tuesday, the guard towers and the turrets should be done completely. Maybe the turrets bleed over another day or so. TPS operator switching is done. We just need to actually have a playtest and then just get the operators so they're buildable via the old window. Because in Legacy, we had like a jack of cards or we had like a little like window where you'd click on that and then you could choose an operator to bring in and then you would choose where you want them to parachute and then they'd come in or whatever. So we need to bring that system back online and make it to where when the operators come in, you auto possess them. And then, kind of do that kind of stuff. What else is there? Day and night system's done. I'm going off of the list that I posted on Discord, which was the reason why we had asked on Discord, do people want us to take another week or two to basically polish up these last systems so when we do get you guys a build you guys can play, it's a little bit more solidified. And I think the vote was 91% in favor of us taking an additional week or two going into April to basically polish up the game a little bit more so you guys can have a little bit more content and a little bit more play-tested systems. Because you can see like the spinners and the infected work until they don't, where there's some cases for whatever reason, like in this video I showed you, where the spinner's not reacting. But when I spawn into the co-op test arena, they are working. So it's one of those things where like we're going to be ratcheting. Those are things that we're working on. Like, and then I'll, like, yeah. And then like the ability system is probably, the ability system, it's really what's going to kick our ass the most because we have to get the grenade throwing back in. We got to get the fire in the air back in. The active denial system, the two things that I showed you guys earlier in this stream, is going to be controlled by the ability system. What's another good example? The blow-up guy blowing up is no longer going to be written in his class, but it's going to be a self-immolation or a self-destroy ability. So that way we can extend that to suicide bombers for civilians in the future. We can extend it to other permutations of infected in the future. Because the biggest thing with this game this time around, this rebuild, is making sure that the code is highly reusable and modular to where like we can add new functionality or new gameplay pretty efficiently and pretty quickly in a timely manner. Because right now the blow-up guy is just code that's written in their AI controller, and it's written mostly in their character class, and it's unique to him. So if I wanted to make a suicide bomber for the civilians, I'd have to copy and paste that code, and then make the alterations or the edits that they would need in their case. We don't want to do that anymore. We don't want to do that. That's a bad practice. We want to make it an abstract ability that we can deploy as needed here or there or wherever in the confines of gameplay, and make it to where we can add new functionality to units or AI relatively quickly. So that's why, like, you figure I would wager that we'll probably be like half the week finishing up like half of that list that I posted. About what day was that? I posted that on 3/19 on Discord, where it's like half of that list will be done going into like Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe a little bit of bleed over. And then really, we'll start the ability system and finish up whatever's remaining for the Infected V and Circ combat AI. Fix up any last minute AI, any operator stuff. And then we'll start the mini map and the ping system as the icing on the cake. Where it's like, okay, like those are the last systems that we need to get in to ensure that the game is firing on all cylinders and that it's what everyone expects of like being able to, play properly per se. Let me just check my notes. We showed the parachute. We showed the. Oh, I might as well show that. I brushed over it really quickly, but we got the old recruit limits in a little bit more intelligently this time, where it's easy. We can set limits on any structure or building or unit unilaterally very quickly in a data asset, and that allows us to make like new game modes or new like balance changes very quickly. Um, so you can see, like, in the dev map, the guard towers are limited to 6. And we made it very easy to do that and edit it and modify it from a game designer standpoint. So that way, anyone on our team would go in and tweak that number on a per map basis as needed. So that was re-implemented, and that was made in a way where it could easily be extended to units. So if we have like a super mecha unit in the future, we don't have to engineer limits. They're just programmed at the native level, and the system just supports and knows, oh, you can only have one of these. You'll also notice that in previous builds, we had it to where like units would get stun locked pretty goddamn easily. Like if I spawn here and I play, in previous builds, they'd get stun locked like really easily. Where you would have like, you would have like, a couple of them where they're no longer able to basically like move because they're constantly just getting hit. Like they're constantly getting hit, they're constantly getting stunned, and it was just broken for the Cirque. So that was one of the things that we did, was basically ratchet that up and lower the spawn chance. So RTS units have a 1% chance of stunning a unit. Operator units have a 100% chance of stunning. And that'll come down to balancing and attachments to a certain degree, and just kind of how it feels. Because we feel like it should play like Resident Evil 4 when it comes to like, or like to a certain degree Division when it comes to the gun combat, to where it should feel impactful when you shoot someone with the gun and the operator, because you're only like thing working for you and for the operator is your precision, your shots, your leg shots, your head shots, your arm shots, and being able to shoot to disarm, being shoot to maim or dismember, and being able to shoot to get a headshot and immediately kill them. So that was one of the biggest things that we wanted to hit upon, was making it to where you had that versatility in combat of like, if I possess little Timmy here and I press the equal sign and I shoot. Oh, he died that fast. Damn it. Okay, I'm going to kill them way too easily, aren't I? So like I shoot to basically break his legs, but god damn it. Get out of here. Oh, damn it. There's another one on the map. Okay, so we're going to possess. Yeah, you can shoot to basically like dismember them basically, and they'll crawl at you, and then they lose their leg and they bleed out after 15 seconds. Now that happens in RTS, and there is a chance of them spawning with melee weapons. And you can see if I can get one. Sorry about the debug traces. We were having this weird bug in client games where sometimes like the traces weren't spawning correctly. So we had to add in like all this corrective logic to try and figure out like what was going on. I guess it doesn't like me because it's not spawning them with a melee weapon. Weird. Sir, I need you to stop running. Well, I'll have to look at the spawn rates for the melee weapons. But the melee... Actually, fuck it. Oh, I don't want that key. That's awkward. F8. Look on his blueprint. The blueprint.
Nothing worse than a infected that knows how to use melee weapons.
Indeed.
It's bad enough when they don't. But damn.
It's odd. Oh. Okay, I think I know what happened there. Is that okay? I see what happened. It must have gotten reset when Derek was working on another element of the game. So their spawn rates were wiped. Their references. And I don't give them the player knife. I think I would delete that. And I give them 0.2, 0.1. And then I would play Possess Little Timmy. And then, there you are, sir. Drop the knife. So you figure that will happen in RTS, where basically your units can shoot to essentially disarm. Your units you can shoot to disarm. If you shoot them, like they have higher damage when they have a melee weapon. And essentially, if you shoot to disarm, they drop the weapon in the hand, they drop it on the ground. If you blow their legs off, they drop the weapon on the ground. And basically they're more focused on trying to like crawl and kill you per se in that moment, over really just kind of like really thinking about the situation a little too much. So that's one of the things that we did just to kind of add a little bit more spice to gameplay to a certain degree there. You'll really see more of the disarming when it comes to the operator because of the pinpoint precision that's required. But it at least gives a little bit more nuance to gameplay of like, if you do have some operators that are playing with your armies, a couple of your friends, per se, then they can kind of target and give you like ideas of what's going on, where the most of the enemies are, what kind of weapons do they have, if you can't zoom in and look at every single unit sometimes. So that's one of the things that we basically just kind of tweaked a little bit there. I'm going to have to commit that change because I guess it got reset. Let me check my list here. Hold on. Oh, one more thing I wanted to mention was that getting the guard tower in fundamentally establishes the garrison system, which is also the backbone of vehicles. Because you figure the same way that we put this guy inside this tower is the same way that we put people inside a vehicle. So there'd be the driver, the pilot, passengers, and whatnot. So ideally, we are laying the foundation for when we do get the doctrine to do the vehicles. One extra thing is already kind of done for us. So we can just kind of focus more on like the actual driving AI and their movement and their coordination for the formation system. Now, I don't know if I'm going to get as lucky as Derek was. I don't know how he got that damn lucky. So I might have to just show the GIF. Yeah, let me just show the GIF. I have no idea how he got that lucky. But he also added it in so this can happen, where essentially a spitter can spit to the point where it kills your guy inside the tower, and then you have to buy a replacement. And he got it to where it was replicated. I'm having obviously that bug where they don't always charge for some reason. So it might have just been a change that was put in last minute that we'll have to look into. But that was one of the things that we also just kind of got in. And then it just says missing occupant. And then you have to just buy a replacement tower guard. And, then you're groovy at that point. So that was also something that got in this week. Let me see. Hold on. Oh, and then the only other thing I have to show before we move on to Q&A would be the weapon variant system, which is basically operators and RTS units have different variations of M4s or SCARs or whatnot. So like you figure one thing that we wanted to do this time around, this is more of an internal thing, is have it to where like there was a distinction between the versions of guns that the operators would use and the versions of guns that the standard grunts would use. So this is the same base weapon blueprint, the same stats per se, but then you can modify those stats via the usage of attachments because this one has a better platform for modification and augmentation over the standard grunt M4. So you can see like this is let me just eject so I have better camera precision. This is an example of basically like this guy is using the same weapon blueprint of M4, but it's basically doing a system where it's like, okay, when we're an RTS unit, we're going to use the highly optimized, fully merged, one texture, one ID version. And then when you're playing as the operator, it uses the separated version where the magazine and a bunch of other elements are separated, like the muzzle brake, the magazine, the scope, that kind of stuff. So then that way we can have the versatility that we need to be able to kind of have like a base weapon that each operator can build from, but the RTS kind of get like a simplistic way of mapping weapons. So we can have a Scar H per se, and then have an operator version of the Scar H, but then also have an RTS version of the Scar H that's more simplified and optimized for scale. Because one of the biggest things that you run into when you have a bunch of permutations of weapons and characters and all that is that you have to track and manage all of those independent assets, and those costs add up. Where it's like every operator weapon has like 5 components, and every RTS weapon only has 1. So then that way it keeps it very lightweight, very cheap, very easy. And the other thing that Michael has to do from his standpoint is just add a scope in the base mesh, add a magazine in the base mesh, or a different barrel, or a different magazine, whatever, based off of like whatever he's doing for that weapon at any given time. So, and then that way, you can see like, okay, like there's the magazine, there's the underbarrel, and it just synchronizes and all the other fun stuff. So that was one of the other things that we set up. We didn't get as far as the weapon variant system that we had talked about previously. That will probably be put on the back burner so I can focus on the ability system, because I want to get a playtest out to you guys as soon as possible. And the weapon variant system is not mission critical. So it's one of those things where like I'll get it on my own time. We have some more free time to just kind of get those little like supplementary nice to haves in the game. Because there was someone that was talking about it, I think in the announcement channel recently. But he was saying like, yeah, this is nice to have, but I just want to play the game. Like I just want something that I can actually tangibly play, and you can put all this other nice stuff in later on, kind of deal. So that was one of the things that I kind of took to heart of like, okay, like I get where you're coming from, and this kind of falls under that. So it's about just not going too deep into the weeds as well, and just doing what absolutely is needed to be able to get you guys something. There's one last thing that I need to show. Actually, I'm sorry, is what we've been working on for the doctrine tree. So this right here is a rough layout of what we're working with for getting the finalized doctrine tree into the game. So in phase 2, stage 2, whatever you want to call it, basically in the next couple of weeks, we'll get to a point where we've established all of the base systems, we've tested it, it's replicated, it's co-op tested, you guys have gotten to play it in some shape, matter, or form. And then at that point, it's the plunge for the deep. We need to basically start on actually doing the passives and getting all the weapons, getting the new weapons in, getting the new structures in, getting the new airstrikes in, and focusing on everything but vehicles in its first pass, so we can get you guys as much content in a timely fashion as possible via the infantry and just like the other sections on our doctrine sheet. So for the people that don't know what I'm talking about, hold on. Hold on. Let me bring this over. So I'm talking about this, but the idea is that we came up with about 6 months ago, roughly, a total revamp. Basically, it was much longer than that. Basically, like what we want to do with doctrines to basically give them a little bit more like Sins of Solar Empire 2, Total War, like an actual progression tree that takes hours instead of 10, 20, 30 minutes, and then you're just done for the rest of the game. So one of the biggest things was like adding like medical Humvees, adding it to where some of the weapons are unlocked by default, making it to where you had like defense slots for some of the vehicles, being able to increase the gas capacity, little passives here and there, different new weapons, a medic. I don't know why that's skilled really. A medic portable defibrillator, so there's a chance that some units can be defibbed. You know, adding in a where is it? Adding in a scientist ability unlock where they can basically like unlock that's for farming DNA. Adding it to where I don't know why they resized it, but Microsoft must have did an update recently, and it must have screwed up all the sizing that I had previously. But it was also like adding in new airstrikes, and just basically just having like a different progression tree. And then the only area that's speculative right now is air mechanized. As it stands right now, we already know we want to add in all the previous units, obviously, and then the weapons that we have are experimental. But anything beyond that, we're still kind of like seeing how long it takes to kind of implement infantry, ground, and logistics. And then from there, we'll reevaluate when we get to that point. You can see that list on our end of the year 2024 post that we made in January. If you want to see a high-res version of it, just keep in mind you can go and fish that out and look at it at your own heart's content on our end of the year post. So that pretty much concludes what we've done since last time we've met. And now I'll open the floor up for questions. So if you had questions earlier in the podcast, please, say them again, and we'll just kind of go through them. I don't know if Winter's still here. He's probably dead. He's having some mic issues, so I'm by myself doing it. So just bear with me. And again, if I miss you, I didn't really get to see too many questions because I was focusing on the presentation. So just say your question again. Thank you, Alpha Legion, for the $10 on YouTube. That's greatly appreciated. Again, all of that goes towards the developers just trying to basically, manage out our day jobs because everyone on the team works a day job. It's the kind of like in between of whatever we're doing throughout the day. Okay, so question. Okay, got one on Discord. We're gonna hop back and forth. So we'll do Discord, YouTube, and then I'll watch Steam. But Steam's kind of like the silent warrior, so they don't ever say anything. So I'm just gonna look at that casually, and we'll see if anyone says anything there. So, Discord. Rifriel asked 2 questions. Will the T2 turret be less effective against unarmored targets? I.e., is there an incentive to keep a few T1s around? First question. Yes. The idea is to have some level of rock, paper, scissors to where there's some kind of balance there in terms of like you don't have a turret at the jack of all traits, and it completely invalidates every other turret in the game. So the SAM site is gonna be like nowhere near let me rephrase that. So the other tier 1 and tier 2s are gonna do practically nothing to birds, and the SAM site is gonna be really what shines because it has the massive AOE to just do a little bit more damage, but also have the AOE to take out a larger cluster of birds faster and more efficiently than the single target weapons that you're going to have in the tier 1, the tier 2 turrets. The second question you have is, do you have any plans on implementing handheld mortars for operators, i.e. the US M224 60mm player mortar teams working with forward observers supporting an assault defense would be pretty dope. So, that's an excellent question. Right now, I don't have any plans for it. We have a mortar on the engineer for the Doctrine sheet. I don't know if we'll be able to implement that for the operator fully, because there's going to be some weapons that only go to the operator, and there's going to be some weapons that only go to RTS. Just because of So let me talk to Michael about that. I personally love the idea especially from playing Battlefield back in the day and having a little tac map that would come up. Or if you play like a little bit more like strategic games like Red Orchestra and whatnot, you would be able to just like you have like a meter or like a zoning system, and then people would have to call in the distance. That's cool. I like that. I know that as it stands right now, we're planning on mortars for the engineers regardless for the doctrine tree. Beyond that, let me get back to you on that. But that's a cool idea. I'm going to write that down, and we'll come back to that in the future. I'm going to pick a question from YouTube now. Let me see if I can find anything. So, I already answered that question earlier, but yeah, it was will we be able to rotate the spotlights, and that's something I'll go and I'll talk to my boy and see if we can figure out something on that. Anything else? They're just compliments. Love you guys for the compliments too. We really appreciate that. Okay. Okay, so then let me switch back over to Discord. Quizbly asks, could perhaps an extra tab which could show simplified log of expenses, which contains information of players which initiated, amount, and timestamp, could perhaps show annual expenses, income, and one? Oh. So, like, if you ever played Park Attack, kind of like that, where it would show, like, a log of, like, all the recent transactions and where your money is going, say, monthly or weekly or whatever. And then that way you could figure out, like, where's all your money going? Is it going in resupplies? Is it going because this one player keeps wasting money kind of deal? Let me write that down. And let me see what we can do with that. So that's not a bad idea. I'm going to put that down on my whiteboard. Give me a second. Of course, my dry erase markers aren't there. Park Attack. Type. Log. System. For. Buddy. I don't know what that means. Okay, so I got that note. Let me come back to that one. What else have we got for question? Have a mod for a body pillow that heals operators? What the hell? That's so confusing. No. Body pillow? Okay. Alright, what else do we have for questions, boys? We have roughly 20 minutes to basically go through whatever questions you guys have.
Where are they posting the questions?
Yeah, it's in
This is
the
general
podcast
comments?
channel on YouTube. Let me see.
There it is.
I can scroll up, see if anything. Oh. Yeah, they're
I'm
posting
in
it both.
Discord.
So,
Aren't they posting some there too?
Von Langston on YouTube asks, questions with regards to the Alcatraz hub. Does Cirque have a lab there? A set piece that shows off maybe samples of a captured infected that scientists are observing. So, yes, it's just not really shown in the version that we have right now. We're like the 10th. Yep.
Yeah, that's going to come in once we start putting details in, like, you know, set dressing further. We're going to have sleeping areas for troops. Like, you know, we're thinking of converting some of the cells into like bunks and stuff that they'll be using, as well as like a level where they'll have infected locked away for experimentation. That will be like a command center in there. You know, we're looking at converting some of the warden office areas into that, like labs and a command center. And definitely, I think we're putting. Yeah, you did mention we're putting in the basement as well, right? All right, on. Yeah, once we start fleshing out all the smaller details, you know, once it's pretty much already, you know, as far as the building facades and everything is complete, and we're doing texturing and set dressing, that's when you'll start to see a lot more of like the the preparation by Circ and their the allocations of their labs and their other facilities within the cell house and the surrounding area on the island. So hopefully that answers the question.
Let me see. Let me scroll and check the YouTubes. So Zentran, I guess, mentioned it'd be cool to have a M2 or TOE emplacement. So as it stands right now, oh fuck. As it stands right now, our plans are to basically just have it to where it's just the ones that we have currently. That could change based off of just like as we keep developing. Why is that guy bugged out? So we got another bug to write down. But yeah, it's one of those things where, yeah, for right now, we're just going to keep it with those two base ones and then keep the toe and all that dynamic to the Ajax, the Hummer. And we'll basically just go off of that for at least the time being. That was weird. Huh. Let me see if I build again. Does he fix it? That's cute. Let's see what I got here. Will ownership be added to builds similar to units? Buildings? Do you mean buildings? Silent? Yeah, okay. No. The idea is that if you don't have money, you can't really do anything in the game anyway. So our thought process is that theoretically it should be enough to just have it to where you just limit the different money flows, and from there you're good to go. If that is not the case, then we'll adjust accordingly. But damn fucking spitters. Ugh. So you figure, oh my god, those spitters are like snipers. So yeah, it's one of those things where, I think it'll take till playtesting for us to basically see if some of our observations were wrong, and hearing more from you guys in terms of like, I don't like that, or people keep joining my games and doing this or doing that. So it's just one of those things where we're gonna have to just put it in the real world and see if our conclusions are correct, and then adjust accordingly. Because you figure like there are things that we're like, oh, that's not going to be a problem, and then it ends up being a problem, because we don't take this into consideration, or someone does something in just the right way, to where it's like, well, shit, we didn't even think about that combination. So it's just one of those things where like we'll be fluid when it comes to that. If it becomes a problem, we'll look into that. I need to get a goddamn engineer. Let me check for some questions on YouTube. Will there be an option later for other players to have their own organizations in the open world and multiplayer with possible PvP with a negotiation system, ally, or war? Just thinking of ideas similar to that with the AI faction system. As it stands right now, the entire game is built around the idea of having the Circ via infected play style approach, whatever you want to call it. I don't see that in the foreseeable future. I could be wrong in terms of basically some other doors open up in the future. Why is that working now? So you figure it's one of those things where like I can't really give you a definite answer on that. But right now, as it stands, that's not a goal. Right now, my goal is just getting it to where you can play as Circ as a unified co-op front up to 4 players. And then when we get that stabilized and ready to go, then we're going to have a secret test eventually that is just for seeing how far we can push the operator players. So people that do want to play with more real people can. And they just take up population. Because in my mind, I'd like to get it up to Silica levels of players or Arma, where it's like another 12 players at least. But we'll see how far we can push it based off of the map sizes and the optimization and the gameplay and everything else. Because there's other considerations I have to take in mind when it comes to when you have that many players running around the world. Because at that point, oh boy, you're like, yeah, that's a lot of CPU power that you need to basically keep that world populated. So, yeah, that's something we have to test for. That's the furthest that I'm thinking to kind of get it to at this point. And yeah.
Here's a good one off of Discord. I don't know if we've answered it yet. Riftval asks, will operators be able to man a tower if a
No.
guard was killed?
That's a good idea. Hold on, I gotta write that down.
Okay. I know.
Looks like we got another bug. Okay, let me write that down. Okay. But yeah, no, operators cannot man towers at this time. But I'm going to write that down.
That'd probably also have to take like a ladder climbing mechanic or animation as well. So that's, I mean,
Well,
it's
at the
possible,
time
but
right now,
extra work.
we don't want to go too deep into the weeds because like people gotta remember this is not just a one and done. Like we're not just doing it and then we're like, oh, we're done. Bye, guys. No, the whole point is to basically get it to a point where you can play it, we can play it, and we don't go too deep in the weeds. And then we have time to add these kind of mechanics and systems over time. I'm sure there will be some concessions that we have to make on the operator in terms of the interoperability of like maybe not being able to fly helicopters, not being able to do the mortars, that kind of stuff. But those things can come in the future. You know, there's no one like saying we can't do those things in the future. You know, so it's one of those things where it's like those are really good ideas, but for right now, they're not on the cards. So I'm just gonna kind of write down some notes, and we'll have to come back to that one in the future. Yeah, definitely. Ever since that one guy got broken in combat, it's affected everyone else via the construction management system. So, good thing I'm recording this because we're gonna have some bugs to go through on Monday. Because he's not even going to his automatic next task anymore. So something in the AI is superseding his ability to scan for other structures to help. Most likely, it's a collision preset that got changed. If I were to guess, I think I might know what it is. So I'll look into that one on Monday. That'll be fun. Let's see what else we have for questions. Let's see. Oh, Quinbely asked, will there be some administrative control to session hosts in case they need to handle the rest of the players in some capacity? At the moment, unsure which aspects could be important for that, given it's co-op and more likely for players playing with friends and groups. Need to handle the rest of. What do you mean by handle the rest of players in some capacity? Could you elaborate on that a little bit? Like you mean like someone's being unruly, or do you mean like? I'm assuming like okay, so you're gonna have the ability to take away units. You'd have the ability to take away their money. You'd have an ability to limit population. You'd have the ability to limit. I mean, yeah. So like you figure. I'll have to bring up the client thing again, but you can take away control. You can take away pop. You can take away how much money they get, and you can give them money if they're not managing it correctly. So it's one of those things where it's like just those in its own should be enough for you to basically rein someone in if they're just not being very conscious of what the team needs and they're only building what they want. But I mean, the idea is that the idea is that you're playing with your friends anyway. So if you're having to basically babysit that much, then you would start to limit them. And then if that's still not a problem, if it's still a problem at that point, then I think you potentially have to worry about kicking them. If you're still not seeing eye to eye, you know what I mean? Well, you teleport them to us. Yeah, or you teleport them to a cell on Alcatraz. That works too. Oh. That's a lot of line traces.
I'm looking for other questions.
Let me go ahead and what I'll do is I'll show it one more time in co-op, since there's some people that came out a little bit later. While we wait for more questions to flow in, because we're gonna give it another 11 minutes, and then we're gonna call it at that point. I'll build with the second client this time. Uh-oh. Ah, fucking spinners. Come on, man.
Is the infested whale still in the plans for the rework?
So the
I want
infected
to depth
whale
charge
is
the
going to
guy.
be 1.4. Like the new infected types are going to be 1.4 at this point, because you figure that's something that we're going to basically be like putting into or looking into when we get to like post co-op. So one of the biggest things is just getting the co-op out, getting it playable, finishing up the 1.3 roadmap, and then at that point, I should give myself a console command to give me more money. And then at that point, reinvesting the what we get from that to basically ratchet up and kind of get the last element of the game where we want it to be for our early access release. Because there's about 2 to 3 infected types that I want to get into the game. That is the Chimera Dog, the Sperm Whale, and Chelsea's Elite Guard minimum. So,
Oh god. So what is it, like a
Basically-
whale that's gonna
well, it basically no, it's more
infection out of
so
its
like a whale
blowhole?
that has its back that's cracked open, its skeleton, its rib cage is exposed, so it's able to transport units. It's mostly a non-combat unit, unless you're a ship like the carrier or the LCAX, because then it could directly assault them. But it's mostly just for transportation outside of the Leviathan across like water, beaches, whatnot.
This
the
infection is
point.
just getting creepier and creepier.
I should have probably put an operator in here so I could run around and play. Bloody hell. Let's put an operator in there. Where hast thou have gone? Operator. Don't look at all the weapons. They're only for the operator. A secret. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to build some emplacements and see if my CPU is not going to melt down. Definitely going to have to get another computer to offload my CPU load when I'm streaming next week. I'll have to set up one of our laptops for that. Yeah, they're all dead. Son of a bitch. Alright, let me check for more questions. After I build this wall. We're definitely gonna have to put in that continuous build mode before we give you guys a build. It is so annoying. Oh shit. Sorry, I need you to calm down. Oh yeah, I should have turned off that damn debug trace. Oh fuck no. She's missing an arm.
She's
She
missing an
should
arm?
not be able to be dismembered. Yeah, that's a wrap.
Oh,
I'm definitely gonna have to look into the. It's too much for my processor to run the game and to run a second client and the streams. I don't think it actually. Yeah. Okay, well that player is just screwed. That's what I mean by that's one of the things that we need to kind of fix. Is like it's not setting the. It should have set the player in the spectator mode, but I guess it's not. And then from spectator mode, you should have been able to buy back in from the barracks. So that's something I'll, or it would have asked you if you want to go back to RTS. So that's weird. I'll look into that going into Monday. Let me see if I can't build up those walls. All right, what other questions do we have?
let's see. Haven't seen anything new coming in on Discord or YouTube, unless I'm missing something.
I mean, you'll have a kick, quibly. If you're a host, you can kick. And if you're not a host, you can vote kick. You just can't vote kick the host. So it's one of those things where, like, we'll be adding in that basic level of functionality. I mean, there's no way someone's going to be able to join your game and just take over your session in terms of ruining your game session. Like, and there might be things that you guys come up with that we didn't think of that we're going to have to basically tweak and improve as we go. Yeah. Ironically, we're getting to a point where we're going to have to basically start doing, like, play sessions on multiple computers. Because now as you start to get the actual game functional, I'm playing on a 4K monitor. I'm probably destroying my processor right now. Let's see.
Here's one. Will we be able to rename individual
You
units?
can already do that. Yeah. Yeah, you can already do that.
Yeah, I think you just have to click inside their name field.
Yeah, because naming for units has always been in there. Now, when you're talking about the operators, absolutely. You can name them from the get-go. You know, because they're your hero units or your commanders on the field. So, yeah, absolutely, you'll be able to name them. And you can name your normal unit just by clicking on the name field and then clicking the little pencil icon. And then when you click on the pencil icon, it allows you to basically change their name and whatnot. I am just curious. Oh yeah, I don't think that was going to work out too well. It's all the drawn debug lines. Michael definitely has to rebalance the recoil for these guns. They're way too wild. I'm better off using a pistol at this range.
I think we already have like hidden
Yes.
infected, right? That's why we have the detectors. So that you can weed them out, yeah. Coolidly was asking that. Another one has, how many days does the outbreak start again? It's probably like, I think it's day 3, isn't it?
Technically, it's like
Or
the
am I
first
wrong?
day still. But pandemic mode is not canon, so depending on your settings and the custom game settings, it could start. You could start basically like technically after a couple of hours to like a full day. Because you change the starting time in the lore and how the game is programmed, it starts at 9 a.m. But if you change the time of the day, then technically you're starting later on. So, yeah. Let's see. Let me try. Let me actually do that. And then we're going to retreat around it. Definitely going to have to increase that radius. I tested this only in my smaller maps, and it just doesn't seem large enough.
I believe we also have like a handheld scanner in the works for
That's
scientists,
being
don't we?
redone
Unless
in the
that's already
future?
in.
Hold on. Got him. So there's an example of the ADS where it'll stun them. What section are they going to come from next? Let's reposition it to there. No. Let's do it there. Right, maybe a little bit more. Right there. And then that way when they come, I can fire it up and stun them. Let me go ahead and check the chat again. So we're going to wrap it up in the next 2 to 3 minutes. Are there any other questions that people had for the progress? Let me see, Quibbly. Oh, crap. Hold on.
Yeah, Kulibli, I think we have pretty much answered it about like special infected that are hidden and focus on
look at you.
sabotaging certain elements of your base.
Nope.
And so far, it's just like the normal ones that can get into your base if you don't have scanners up, and they'll just start. They go full infected. I think that stuff like the bursters, those guys are, way too far along to be hidden.
When it comes down to like actually cloaking or camouflage ones, your best bet are going to be that's what's going to be the spitters. When it comes to getting around and basically like fucking with you, when it comes, it will have to just see, because you figure we wanted to do different permutations of the spitters and the blow up guys to make it to where they're a little more fleshed out. We'll have to see when I can fit that in there, because I wanted to make sub variations of the blow up guys and spitter guys that have different like attributes to them based off of the lieutenant that they serve. So then that way, when you did go against a lieutenant in the pandemic map, you actually had to like do some amount of planning and customization to basically make sure that you were accounting for like their unique way that they handle gameplay. And I think I just found another bug. Yeah, the navigation mesh is not updating. Thought I fixed that earlier in the week, but I'll have to look into that. And that looks like the nav isn't always updating when you build a structure. So that's probably a collision change related to with a guard tower implementation. Write that down. Okay. Sorry.
Zentran asks if we had mentioned formations for convoys and vehicles in the last stream. I think we did, like 2 streams ago,
one of the
actually.
biggest things was just making it to where they're right low on that though. One of the biggest things was making it to where they would have synergy in terms of basically how they handled movement. So they were pretty intelligent in terms of figuring out, like, okay, like, I need to go here, I need to do this, and being able to understand, like here, I'll just really quickly show it, and then we're going to wrap it up. No, it's not that map. So, really quick drive-by. That's how I envision the only formation that's ever going to exist for vehicles, infantry, and helicopters cross-moving, is that you're going to have this kind of assessment of movement right here. When it comes to vehicles, you'd have 2, this and that. And when you have helicopters, you have a variation of this and potentially another version to basically get the ball rolling. Then you'd have the 3 to 4 base formations that you have for infantry. And that way, whenever you give a combined move order like this, they would just default to something like this. And then that way you would have vehicles that you'd have points that they would attach to, that they would basically move within. And then when they run out of those points, they'd fall in on a 2x2, either in the front or the back. And that's the direction we're going in, just to make it to where it's manageable. Because in that way, they'll pathfind and they'll try and find a location that accommodates everyone. So if they have to go a longer route, they're going a longer route. But they're not going to separate. So you're not going to get the infantry going one way and then the vehicles going another way, because that defeats the point of a joint move order. So if you decide to move vehicles with infantry, you're going to have to take a loss of it might take them a little bit longer to get there because of just generally the amount of clutter in the level per se. Um, let's see. So Captain Pandora asked the question about making the levels, the buildings, and the map explorable. Um, there's about 10 buildings that were hollowed out, and then they're going to be when Efren finishes Alcatraz, and Dimitri finishes the interior, and then helps them finish up whatever's remaining. Then they're going to go back to working on the pandemic map, which is going to be the replacement for what we have right now in Legacy. So when they do that, one of the things that they'll do is see about taking that a little bit further for bringing back those hollowed out structures, because some of them were closed up over time, and they just need to be like there was 12 structures in the entire game that had like some amount of interior. So that's something that we'll revisit when we get to that point. But for right now, they're being left on the wayside. Let me see. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything for that. Let me see if there's any other questions. Okay, so I think that pretty much wraps it up for questions. I want to thank everyone for coming today to the podcast. I know we didn't have one last week, so we had a lot to catch up on. Right now, we're going to keep working towards the goals that I've outlined on our Discord announcements channel. We'll keep you guys informed on the daily update blog so you guys can track along. Hopefully, I'm feeling fully better on Monday, so I can actually help contribute. But it's one of those things where we'll go through and we're going to bang out whatever's remaining for the guard tower, which is the last remaining bugs, and make sure the weapon switching works. Move on to the turrets. Get the 2 base turrets implemented. The birds aren't in the game yet, so we won't really work about the anti-air yet. And then we'll get the 2 base turrets in. Then we'll work on the ability system, and then it'll be the mini map, and then fixing the bugs you saw, which is going to be basically the combat-related bugs, the construction-related bugs, and getting the game to a point where we have to start actually having like people able to play like when we show the podcast. Because ultimately the goal is in the next couple of weeks is to get it to where like Efren actually has to open up Steam and play the game and join my server, because the game's going to get to a point where it's so complicated, there's so much going on, but I probably won't be able to like play a full session in co-op like on split screen, because you're running the same client 3, 4, 5 times. And as you guys know, that's insane for even the most strongest computer out there for running a game that many times on one instance or multiple instances. So that's the goal we're working towards. And as we get to that point, we'll either get people on the Discord to help us out for being the extras, or we'll get like some of the devs to do it if like we can't find anyone. We should be able to find people, I'm sure. So there's that. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. I apologize again if I sound kind of weird. I've been really sick this week. So yeah, and we'll be back next Saturday again at noon. And again, thank you guys for coming. If you guys want to support development, check out our Patreon. Check out the book on Steam or on Amazon. I guess you can now support on YouTube. We added that in as another option besides Patreon and Discord for people that want to basically do that. We have gotten some recent interest on the weapon support packs, or the civilian support packs, of people asking questions. So if you guys have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me or Michael on Discord. But it does allow you to pick a weapon every 3 months based off of pledging on Patreon. And then basically you just have to get approval for the weapon before you pledge. And then that way you're like, hey, I want to give this gun to the Spec Ops, but it can't be like a World War I carbine or something. I don't know. So the idea is that like there's still an approval process. So if you are thinking about doing that, please reach out to us. so we can kind of work it out and figure out like, oh, this is going to spec ops, this is going to the Federer, this is going to civilians, X, Y, and Z, that kind of stuff.